Hey there, welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 195. I'm Mike.
I'm Chad.
And the part of our collection that we're going to be talking about today is just a little more random stuff. You've got some DC guys.
I do.
I've got some odds and ends. And look, I can already tell my glasses are fogging up. It's too warm in here. So yeah, I was going to ask you before we get started.
Sure.
The first time you came on as a guest, I named the episode Toy Talk with Mike and Chad.
Yeah.
And I've just kind of subsequently named all the videos that. Should we have a different subtitle for, or are you happy with Toy Talk with Mike and Chad?
I mean, it's your channel. I'm fine with Toy Talk with Mike and Chad.
Yeah, well, I feel like maybe we should almost have. So this is technically Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 6.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like we'll have a little like sub episode, kind of like with Marvel Comics. They have the legacy numbering and the new numbering. So this is Legacy episode 195, but it's Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, episode 6. So yeah, if you just want to catch up with what me and Chad have been talking about, you only have to watch 5 prior episodes. You don't have to watch 194 episodes. Yeah. So yeah, let's get started. So we were both on vacation.
Yeah.
This week. What did you? You want to give me a quick cold note? So how was your vacation? What did you do?
First 4 days, I slept a lot. I've been off school for a couple of weeks, so it was just a matter of playing catch up on my sleep, and I bagged and boarded some comics. I did read a couple. I didn't get through as many as I hoped. So
how many comics did you have to bag and board? Because I know you had a pretty good stack.
It was like 358, I think, was the count that have just been sitting there.
So did you have to go out and buy 300 bags and 300 boards?
I bought them on my last vacation and just didn't have a chance to get into that when school started back up. So
isn't that the worst?
No, I bagged quite a few, and it was nice to finally get them in their bags, all boarded up. And I read some Batman. I read a couple Something is Killing the Children.
Yeah, it's a good series.
I've been collecting the trade paperback versions.
Yeah,
so
me too.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. And I caught up on Noctera, a series that I'm following by Scott Snyder and Tony S. Daniel.
Okay.
And the rest of it, I just kind of hung around, tried to play a few video games that didn't go too well, read a couple books, and spent the day yesterday with my friends.
Cool.
How about you?
Yeah, it was not as active as I was hoping. It was kind of a staycation. But we did a few things. Like me and Vanessa, we went to a concert the other night. We went and saw the band Big Wreck. Now, we're in Canada. I don't know where you guys are, but Big Wreck is pretty big in Canada. At least they were. They were like a big 90s kind of band. Now they still kind of hang around. And they also played with a local band, the Motor League. So those were both really good shows. I posted a video of it on the channel here. It's not a Mike's Collection or a Toy Talk with Mike and Chad, but still, it's just there for prosperity's sake. So if you want to go watch the Big Wreck concert, that's on there. So that was fun. We went to Rib Fest, which is kind of like an annual thing they do here, and I think pretty much everywhere. It travels all over the place, which was okay, even though I don't eat ribs. I had some mac and cheese at Rib Fest. Me and my wife Vanessa, we took her father's little, he's got a little sports car. It's a Prowler. Nice. You familiar with these?
Yeah.
And so that was pretty cool. So we just went for a drive around the city and... So here's a shot of us driving over one of the 2 suspension bridges that connect the cities of Halifax and Dartmouth. At least they used to be 2 separate cities. Now they're all just one, called the Halifax Regional Municipality. Here's me. I'm at the top of Citadel Hill, which is a big hill in the center of the city. There's another shot of the bridge. At the top of Citadel Hill, there is the Citadel Fort, which I got a quick shot of it in here. There's the Scotiabank Center, so that's the big arena where our hockey team, the Halifax Mooseheads, play, but I've also seen the UFC and Green Day, the Stone Temple Pilots there. That's the Halifax famous clock tower. This is a shot of the exterior wall of the fort. And there you see another shot of the famous clock and the Scotiabank Center in the background from the top of the hill. And I found a toy store, which I want to talk to you about, because kind of the first activity I think I did this week was on Tuesday. My wife went with her mom to Cape Breton for a day, so I was kind of home alone all day, and you and me, we went toy shopping.
Yes.
So we went to Toys R Us, which is, we still have those here in Canada, and so no luck at Toys R Us for you.
No.
It wasn't great. Like, it's nice to go into Toys R Us, and I did shoot some footage, which I'll splice in here. Again, nothing super exciting, but for those of you who used to love going to Toys R Us and no longer have the luxury of being able to do that, I just kind of randomly shot some random footage of like going down the aisles and stuff, so maybe that'll hit that little nostalgia button for you. But yeah, there wasn't a whole lot there to get excited about, and the prices are just crazy at Toys R Us. Like, again, I feel most people that watch this channel are probably in the USA. So you might, just right there, you'll see the prices are already seeming high because the Canadian dollar is about $1.30 on every American dollar. But even still, like, the average price for a 6-inch figure here was about $30 for a long time. And then it kind of went up to about $35 is becoming the norm. And that's okay. So if you see some of those price stickers, that doesn't really alarm me. But, like, they're charging like $42, $44 on a lot of 6-inch figures now. They had a Star Wars Black Series kind of deluxe figure, which is, the figure itself is no bigger. He just comes with 1 or 2 extra accessories. That Mandalorian, heavy armor Mandalorian guy. And he's at, I think it's $56.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Like, the prices there, you almost can't shop there anymore. It's ridiculous. And I don't think I bought anything there.
You did not. We both passed. Yeah.
So yeah, nothing at Toys R Us. We were hoping to get to Giant Robot Comics, which is a local comic book store that I don't get to all that often. That's your regular shop.
That is my regular shop, yeah.
So you get to go pretty much, maybe not weekly, but pretty regular.
It used to be weekly. It's kind of hard with school and full-time work, so it can be bi-weekly now, tri-weekly.
Yeah.
It just depends on what I've got going on. But,
yeah. So we didn't make it there, but we went over just to Walmart. And it was, like, prices were better, but not nearly as much selection.
No.
You've got essentially, the action figure aisle. So I did grab something there, which, if you watched my last video, I bought the Therizinosaurus from Jurassic Park. So I bought another little dinosaur dude. I am on a little bit of a Jurassic Park kick right now. And I know I talked about this in our recent episode, that, like, I'm not really into collecting Jurassic Park toys. This really isn't a hole I want to start going down. But everybody loves dinosaurs. You're lying if you tell me you don't love dinosaurs, or there's something wrong with you. So, like, I had a lot of dinosaurs when I was a kid, and I don't really feel the need to upgrade my Triceratops and my Stegosaurus. But when I see things like this, like, I've never seen this dinosaur before.
No.
And I forget what he's called. When I do a little insert shot, I'll tell you his name. But it's basically unpronounceable. It's something weird. And I'm like, is this really a dinosaur that existed, or they just make this shit up for it?
Yeah.
And it's hard to know, because they have gotten into making up some of those dinosaurs now with the Indominus Rex and the Indoraptor. But yeah, I think this is supposed to be a real thing. And, he's kind of cute. It was like $12.99. He reminds me of the dogs from Ghostbusters.
Yes.
I
can see that.
He's kind of got that shape with those horns on him. That's what he looks like to me. So this was pretty much all we picked up on our little toy adventure. So yeah, I'll do an insert shot of him. And while I'm reviewing him close up, I'll also talk about this other dinosaur I picked up. So I picked him up a couple of days prior. Mm-hmm. And this is another one where it's like, it's kind of familiar. Like, it kind of looks like a Stegosaurus. Which has the plates like this down his back, and then he has a couple spikes on his tail. But this guy's like a Stegosaurus cranked up to 11, and he's got his plates turn into spikes, and he's got 2 rows of them down his whole back, and his tail is completely covered in spikes. And then he's got these 2 ridiculous, like, tusks or something, like, poking out of him. Seems very random. It's hard to believe that's a real animal. I think maybe a paleontologist fucked up on this discovery. Like, it just seems weird.
Those are actually T-Rex teeth.
Yeah, or maybe like a woolly mammoth impaled him and they got it wrong or something. Because that just seems like a weird animal to exist. Like, you've already got a lot of spikes and plates. Like, really, you need those?
And those are also not pointed, like, to the side. It's kind of pointed up, so how are you going to use those?
I don't know. And I know they're guessing with paint, like the color dinosaurs. Maybe if those two spikes were just black like everything else, it wouldn't be so alarming. But the fact that they chose to color them like teeth growing out of his body, it just makes him seem weird. And I forgot, I actually have the packaging right here. So this guy here, the black spiky guy, is called a Miragia.
Marigaya,
whatever. And one thing interesting to note about him is, again, I'll insert a shot of the packaging, but it's got the Jurassic World Dominion packaging, even though I don't recall seeing this guy in the movie.
I don't recall him.
I don't think he was in the movie, but he might have been in quickly in a wide shot or something. But then this guy, when I picked him up at Walmart, again, I've kind of ruined the packaging here, but this is not the Dominion packaging. This just says Jurassic World generic, so I don't know if this is from the first or the second movie, and maybe they just hauled them out of the back room because there's interest in dinosaurs again. So yeah, I don't know how old this figure is. This might have been released a couple of years ago for all I know, but it was the first time I saw it. So, there you go. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to do a cutaway probably in a second here and do a close-up, but you might not be here for that, so do you have any thoughts on these dinosaurs before we move on?
I think they're pretty cool. Like you, I had a lot of dinosaurs when I was a kid. It's interesting to see some of the hybrid creations they've made through the new movies, like the Indominus Rex and the Velociraptor kind of hybrids, the Indoraptor.
He's cool.
I mean, yeah, just a lot of nice little articulation on him. I like that the mouth kind of opens and closes, but
yeah, this guy, he goes really wide. It's like freakishly wide mouth.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's something neat to add to the collection, I think.
Yeah, the articulation is pretty limited on these guys, but yeah, they're fun.
We did head over to GameStop that day too.
Right. Did I get anything at GameStop? Yes,
I
did. All right. So here's the insert of the dinosaurs close up. So here is a closer look at my Jurassic World dinosaurs. So here is the Spiky Stegosaurus looking guy, who I have learned that you pronounce his name Miragaya. And yeah, so he's basically a long-necked Stegosaurus. That's kind of his biggest claim to fame, is that he has a longer neck than other animals in this category, such as the classic Stegosaurus. Now, one thing that is interesting is when Chad was here, I noted that these things look like they don't really belong there. When you Google this guy, some of the pictures show them with the spikes and some of them don't. I went to the Wikipedia page, and there's a section here that says, a rather long, narrow, and straight preserved spike was at first considered to have been a shoulder spine, but was later seen as part of some tail arrangement. So I'm not sure if perhaps early discoveries of this guy, they thought he had these spikes, and then they later figured out that no, these are actually just spikes that were from his tail, and so maybe they are a fuck up from some paleontologist somewhere. However, I didn't dig very deep into my research. That's just Wikipedia, so God knows. But it definitely looks weird, so it wouldn't surprise me if they weren't really there in real life. So anyway, his neck moves up, down, not really side to side. It turns, but there's no side-to-side movement. His legs, forward, backwards. There's no kind of like knee joints, and there's no outer movement, like you can't do the splits or anything. His tail, it's got some limited movement there, but no additional articulation. He does have that opening mouth, which I mentioned before. He's got a really wide mouth. Like you can open that up really wide. Seems almost excessive. But he's got a really nice little face. There's a lot of detail kind of painted in his little orange eye there. And then this, this little paint deco they've given on his face makes him kind of interesting to look at. Reminiscent of like a turtle face to me. Yeah, so he's cool. I like this guy. Now, when I looked at, I tried to get a sense of the size of this guy in real life, and the image I found looked like he was about the size of kind of the classic Stegosaurus. So I would say this guy's pretty small. Like if I compared him to a 3 3/4 inch figure in my collection, which the Jurassic World figures are 3 3/4 inches. So here he is next to Venom. So I would say this guy's kind of small because the Stegosaurus, when I put the size comparison up, you can see how big this Miragaia should have been to a human, I guess. So this figure here, I guess, would have to be like a baby Miragaia. Anyway, enough about him. Here is this guy, and I don't know if I mentioned his name when I was showing you him earlier, but this is a Shrinkasaurus. So that's kind of an interesting name. I've never heard of that before. So yeah, he does have these horns on his head. Now what I read is that he is a herbivore, so he might look a little scary, but he is just a plant eater, I guess. So he's pretty cool. His articulation, so he's got an open mouth as well, not nearly as wide. His neck moves kind of weird because it's got some up and down movement, but you feel he should be able to turn to the side, but instead his neck just kind of does that kind of weird turn. Again, his legs forward and backward. There's no side to side movement. The tail just has the one kind of joint there that you can swivel. It's weird. His legs and his tail seem to be a slightly different color plastic from his body. Also, the fact that none of this brown pattern carries over makes it look a little odd. Like they're clearly distinct pieces from the main body. But anyway, I think this is a really cool looking little dinosaur. And again, these guys were like $12.99, so it's hard to go wrong. I think it's interesting how his head is very T-Rex-like. At least that's what I see. Now again, from the descriptions I read online, is they actually have not found a complete skull of one of these guys, so they really don't know what his head looks like. They described it as kind of small and boxy. So I don't know, this might be just Mattel's interpretation of it, but there were some images online that looked quite different. So anyway, there you go, that's pretty cool. Oh, and I should mention the size as well. So I looked at a sizing chart for the Shrinkasaurus, and this actually looks about right. So I guess this animal would have been the size of, I don't know, what would you say that's the size of? A very large dog or a pony or something. So that looks about to scale with the 3 3/4 inch figures. So yeah, both pretty cool. Okay, so we're back, and now I'm going to talk about. So we also went to GameStop, and this is an example of me spending money. Well, so were the dinosaurs. These are examples of things I'm buying that I really should not buy. Because money's tight, don't get me wrong. You see all this shit and you're like, oh man, he must be loaded. I am not. I'm broke. And buying these things don't help. Now, I do have some strict collections that I feel are like must-haves. Like when I collect G.I. Joe and they put out a new G.I. Joe or a new Marvel Legend, I have to buy it. My dog's barking, so I might have to cut away here in a sec. But when it comes to stuff like this, like it's not like I'm going to start buying all the Jurassic Park dinosaurs, so why do I even need the one or the two? I really just try to save my $12 or $13.
They look cool, though.
They do look cool. But again, I'm running out of room here. Not only am I running out of money, but there's no room in this. This room is full. Alright, I'm going to hold off till my dog stops barking. Okay, I think my dog has stopped barking. So, I went to the GameStop, and they have, all the usual stuff I collect. Star Wars, Transformers, but nothing was jumping out at me. I either have it already, or there was just nothing I was really after. But I saw this, and I picked it up, and even now, I know I shouldn't have bought it, but I don't regret it. I haven't opened it yet, but I'm sure there's not much to it. I don't think any of the figures are articulated or anything. But what this is from the Nintendo game Pikmin. And the first Pikmin, I think, was GameCube.
Yes.
And then, was there one on the Wii?
There was one on the Wii U?
Okay, because I have Pikmin 1 and 2, and I think maybe they were both GameCube.
Yeah.
And, so I haven't played the one on the Wii U. Pikmin 3, which this is apparently based on. But, it's a weird little game, and it's the kind of game that's up my alley. Like, I'm not a big video gamer, especially solo gaming. Like, I like to play some shooters with my friends when they come over, but I haven't done that really in years. It's kind of like a high school thing I was into. But when it comes to getting a game that I'll actually sit down and play, Pikmin really kind of captured my attention for a while when those games came out. I sat and I played them from start to finish, over a very long time. I'm not very good at games, so it kept me busy for a while. But basically, you're a little spaceman, and you crash land on Earth, and you're just like the size of a bug. And so you're going through these Earth environments, and you have to find the pieces of your spaceship to put it back together to get back to your home planet. And along the way, you discover these little creatures called Pikmin, and there's different colored ones, and you have to plant little seeds for them to grow. And when they grow, you can either pick them too early when they have like a little leaf on their head, or they can have a bud on their head, or you can let them full blossom into a flower on their head, and they're like stronger the more advanced they are. And it's kind of like, I don't know if it's kind of like Lemmings or not, but basically you lead these things, you control the spaceman, and the little Pikmin follow you around in the game. And if you, as the spaceman, march into a puddle of water, your Pikmin will all drown because Pikmin can't swim, except the blue ones can. So you have to kind of separate your blues and bring them in. The red ones can go in fire. The yellow ones can walk through electricity. The big fat purple ones are like extra strong, and they have the strength of 10 regular Pikmin. And then there was also some white Pikmin which could walk through poisonous gas. I don't know why we didn't get any white ones here. But anyway, I always just thought the Pikmins were adorable. And I love the fact that you get like multiples of each color in there. So when I open this up and display them on my shelf somewhere, I'll have a nice little, a well-represented Pikmin army. But yeah, didn't need this. It's a one-off. It's not like I'm a diehard Pikmin fan. But it was fun, it was cute, and
Olimar is a cute little dude.
Yeah, Olimar is the astronaut there.
Yes.
And he's cute. I'm kind of surprised because in Pikmin 2 you had his buddy, too. Do you remember what his name was?
I can't. I didn't play that game.
There was a second astronaut, and I think you could actually do split screen, and you could break your Pikmin into two groups, and you and your friend could play together. I forget the secondary astronaut's name, but that might have been a nice little addition if he was in there, but I'm okay without him. Yeah, it's cool. I don't know. Yeah. Waste of money, but cool. So here is Captain Olimar and his Pikmin outside of the box. And you can see there was this cardboard insert in the box, which I think it's probably just meant to serve as background for the figures while they're in the box. But it actually works as a little diorama. This kind of grassy, mossy background is kind of what the backgrounds look like when you're walking around in the Pikmin video game. So here is Olimar, and he looks pretty great. He looks like he just stepped right out of the video game. There's, I don't think really, okay, his head turns a little bit, so there's some articulation there. But the antenna looks pretty great. He's got his little tracking device. I think that's his whistle, actually. He has to whistle to attract the Pikmin. But yeah, he looks pretty good. It looks like the helmet might come off, but I don't want to try and take it off if I don't need to. I don't want to risk breaking it. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then you can see I've got the 4 different color Pikmin here. So 3 blue, 3 purple, 2 yellow, 2 red. And they're all a little different. You'll notice the yellow ones have big ears. The purple ones have these little doohickeys growing off of their heads. The red ones have a pointy nose. And then the blue ones, they have mouths. So they're all different. Now this is a nitpick. Like, I really do think this is a nice set. The fact that you get a bunch of different Pikmin all in here. But where I mentioned, like in the game, you plant Pikmin, no matter what color they are. And they start off with a little leaf. And if you pick them when there's a little leaf coming out of the ground, they look like this. If you wait longer, a little bud forms, and then they have a little bud on their head. And when they're fully developed, a flower blooms. So I just think it would be kind of nice, maybe if they're going to give us 3 blue guys, 3 purple guys, that maybe if they gave us one with a bud and one with a flower, rather than just like 3 identical purple, 2 identical yellow, and so on. So that's a minor nitpick. I think they are pretty cute. I really do like these guys. And this is another thing this is minor, but I actually think it's a pretty big win, is you notice all the figures have little bases, which is good because they probably wouldn't stand up very well without them. But I don't really like figures that have permanent bases attached to them. I don't know, it just makes them feel like less like figures if they have a base. And all these guys actually come off of their bases. So I don't know if they will stand up at all, probably not. But like if you wanted to make, say, a little diorama with these guys, and you didn't necessarily want the little display bases, you can take them off. So I think that's pretty cool. But they do stay on there pretty good. And yeah, they're pretty adorable. So, for $30, I think this set was totally worth it. It's a fun little set, and it'll add some color to one of my shelves. That was our day.
Yeah.
Toy shopping. Now, at that same GameStop, you did see a couple of toys, and you lamented, like, oh, I can't get them. I might go back on payday.
Yeah.
And you went back. So why don't we talk about
I went back. So I did see a couple figures. So the main one I've been looking for the longest time was Clayface. So he's considered a mega fig. This guy is pretty beefy. And it has a price tag of $54.99 on it, which is pretty consistent with the rest of the.
But he seems worth it. Like he's a big, chunky figure.
Girthy.
He's girthy.
So yeah, sure. So I thought I'd go back on payday, and what I have been doing lately, like money is also tight. As a full-time student, and I've been trying to sell off some of my Switch games that I haven't been playing. Or PS4 games. I sold my PS4 a couple weeks ago, and I can't seem to sell these games. So I took them into GameStop and figured I'd see what I could get for them. So I ended up trading in Final Fantasy 15. I traded in WarioWare. I traded in Trials of Mana. A couple other Switch games that were low value, and ended up getting 56 something for them. So,
so paid for him.
It paid for him, and I was like, that is fantastic. On a couple of the other episodes, I mentioned that Frank Miller is probably my favorite Batman artist. Like, I just love the Dark Knight look by Frank Miller. So when we were in there the other day, I did see the Dark Knight Returns figure, and this is what I pictured my Supreme Knight figure to look like.
Right,
so
that figure from that 112 figure from Mezco, right? That we reviewed a couple episodes ago.
So I'm happy to actually finally get something representative of Frank Miller. So this one was
like he's girthy.
He's beefy. He's what Batman should be.
Maybe that could be the title of our show. We're just talking girth.
Yeah. So this one was $35. So I still had a couple bucks left over, and my card also upgraded to a platinum card based on my points. So I ended up getting more money off him, and I didn't expect to get a whole lot for the games I traded in. I figured maybe $20 if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
So this basically makes up for what I was willing to spend on Clayface. So I'm pretty psyched that I was able to get two.
Now he's cool. Like he looks like I'm not. I don't have a ton of exposure to Clayface. I mostly kind of think of the '90s like Batman cartoon
animated series. Yeah.
And this obviously draws from that quite a bit. But he does. You can't help but Clayface does just kind of look like a pile of shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like so he's kind of gross. It's just unfortunate. It's unfortunate Clay has to be so brown and
yucky.
Reminds me of that dude from that Kevin Smith movie where there was a shit monster.
Yeah.
But it's a cool figure. And like he's heavy. He's heavy. Hold. So yeah. He's worth $50.
He doesn't come with any accessories, which
he's got that one little stand.
He does. Yeah, he has the tiny little stand that's probably not going to fit
and
both
trading
legs. And a trading card. So all the McFarlane figures do come with trading cards. The one thing that's hard to compare to this one, though, is the scale. Because since he's a shapeshifter, Basil Carlo, Clayface's identity, he stands 5'11", I believe, normally, and Batman is typically 6'2" in canon. So again, he can range in size because he is a shapeshifter. So I don't think it's really a fair comparison. Now, if you were to stand him up to the other megafigs like Darkseid or Steppenwolf, seems a little off kilter.
Yeah, no, like, because I reviewed a couple episodes back the Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
And I guess he would have been that scale, like, but he's not nearly as wide. He's a taller figure.
And that's why it's hard to compare. So he might have to be on a shelf by his...
See, I'd rather my Swamp Thing more like that.
Yeah.
I would have preferred Swamp Thing to be beefier than taller, because he's over there with my DC guys, and he towers over them. He looks like he's from a different line altogether. And like I know, Swamp Thing apparently can be quite tall. Like, that's not... It's not out. It's not like... That's from the comic books. He can be that tall, but I don't see him that tall. I think any comic books I've read with him, he wasn't, like, freakishly tall. Right. So it seems off to me. But anyway, so this guy comes with a horse tail.
Yes. So
you gonna buy the horse?
No. So we've talked about...
Yeah, this looks like something out of a butcher shop here. You see all the pieces of the horse that you can snap together if you buy those other figures in the line. And then you get a pretty cool horse, which is a scene right out of the comic book.
Death Metal Batman. So we've talked about Build-A-Figs before. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate that this line features 3 sculpts that I don't care about. Particularly the Carrie Kelly Robin. So they actually had a duo pack of her and the Joker at Toys R Us when we were there, and the knee sockets, and it's just skin, so it doesn't look right. Yeah. I don't care for the sculpt, and I can't justify paying that money for a figure that I really don't like. And I don't need a horse. I don't think Batman needs a horse. So
with Marvel Legends, they always have Build-A-Figures, and sometimes I end up buying figures I don't want, like an extra Doctor Strange or something. But that's because, like, if I really want that Build-A-Figure, I'll have to bite the bullet and buy those other figures. Yeah. But in this case, it is just a horse.
Yeah.
Like, if you really want Batman on a horse, you could buy a horse figure from a completely different line. Yeah. Or better yet, buy him a Dinosaurs.
Well, he does have a dinosaur in the Batcave, so...
There you go. Yeah.
But, yeah, I am not a fan of these sculpts, and the Superman looks kind of weird, too. Also not a big fan of Superman, so... Yeah, I would probably stop here, and maybe I'll try to post the horse tail on, like, Marketplace and see if anyone wants to buy.
Yeah, or...
so they don't have to buy it.
So, at Giant Robot Comics,
yeah,
they will buy Build-A-Figure parts, because they've got a whole rack of Ziploc baggies with little... And they usually ask, I think, $5 for a limb, and like maybe $10 for a torso. So yeah, I don't know. He probably only gives you like $2 or $3 for it, but better than nothing, I guess.
Yeah, I'll take that. It's a comic book almost, depending on what I buy. So
almost, yeah.
Yeah. So I was pretty psyched to get this Batman.
Cool. All right, that's all you get in your.
That's all I brought today. Yeah.
All right, so after we went out on that was Tuesday, I think.
Yep.
Wednesday. So that was Vanessa was back from Cape Breton, and we that's the day we borrowed the Prowler and went for a drive around town. Now, we didn't really have a destination in mind. We were just kind of going out, enjoying the convertible, the air flowing through our hair and stuff, but I was kind of like, well, you know what? Me and Chad never got to Giant Robot Comics yesterday. So we went to Giant Robot, and all I ended up buying there was comic books. Like, I bought that Omega War.
Oh, they did have it. Good.
Yeah, I bought that. I also bought like a toy magazine. There was lots of toys that I picked up, and I was kind of like, but nothing I pulled the trigger on. We also went to Strange Adventures, which is my comic shop. But all I got there was it was Wednesday, so I got my weekly comics. So that's cool. Something to read, but nothing to play with. But anyway, we were driving around Dartmouth, and I seem to recall that somebody had told me that there's another collectible shop in Dartmouth. And I was like, yeah, somebody had mentioned it to me before, and I started Googling it, and I was like, collectibles in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. And I found that there was this place called Lost World, and I was like, maybe that's the place I'm thinking of. And she was like, okay, well, we can check it out. Where is it? And I said, well, it's on Portland Street. And she's like, well, we're on Portland Street. And I said, oh, really? And I looked up, and literally we were in front of it. I was like, oh, nice. that's the place. So I went in there, and I was kind of blown away by it. Like, it's a dump. Like, it's a complete mess.
Does it look like Clayface?
It's not as gross as Clayface. But it's awesome in that this is the kind of store I think we've talked about it recently where I was like, why can't we have a store like this? Because there's a store called, it's in Moncton.
Comic Hunter?
It's not Comic Hunter.
Oh, it's the one that you told me that was right next to Comic
It's actually
Hunter.
a video store, but they've got a toy section. But anyways, there's a store in Moncton, which is a few hours drive from us. Like, we're in Nova Scotia. New Brunswick is the next province over, kind of like the next state over. And they've got this store that's just old toys, like old G.I. Joes, old Star Wars figures. A lot of them are in packaging still. They're pinned up to the wall. They've got pegs of old figures from the 80s and 90s you can flick through. Spinner racks full of loose toys. And, I love that store. Every time I go to New Brunswick, I always make sure to go in there and check it out, and I always find cool stuff. And I kind of thought, how come we can't have that in Halifax? Like, Halifax is a bigger city than Moncton, New Brunswick. We obviously have multiple comic book stores. I'm like, how come nobody just focuses on the toys? So I found this place, Lost World, and apparently it's been there for 6 years. But it's all this old retro toys. Like, he doesn't carry new stuff, so I think it's all just trade-ins. And I could have rooted around in there for hours. I felt like I only scratched the surface because things were piled on top of each other. He had bins everywhere. He had video games too. He had like old consoles and video games, and he had DVDs and Blu-rays. I took some pictures, and I don't think I shot any video, but I took some pictures in there, so I'll post those in here. But he wasn't cheap. Like, it was a collectibles store. He had some battle beasts. Now, I know you guys probably can't see them, but that's what's in those clear cases behind us there. So battle beasts are this 80s toy line where they were little, like 2-inch figures, and they come in 2 packs together, so you get like 2 little animals, and they come with a little weapon. They don't really move that much, only their arms are articulated. But anyway, it's one of my all-time favorite toy lines. I have a complete set of the North American releases up behind me there. There were some later Japanese only figures that I don't have, and I probably never will because they sell for like $300 to $500 like a figure.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he went in there and he had a bunch of battle beasts. He has like loose ones in little Ziploc bags, and with weapons and without. The ones without weapons I think were about $10 a figure. The ones with were maybe $25, $30. But he had a couple of the carded ones, so the 2 beasts on a card, and he had I think 4 of them. And I said, how much are the carded battle beasts? Because I thought that'd be a cool thing to have to maybe just pin up on the wall there next to my opened ones. And he said they were $450 a piece. So I was like, ooh, that's a little rich. Another thing he had that I thought was cool is, are you familiar with the Shogun Warrior Godzilla?
Yes.
So I have the little reaction figure that Super 7 put out recently, which is a recreation of the Shogun Warriors Godzilla, which is I think essentially the first Godzilla toy that was ever really produced, at least in North America. There might have been some in Japan or something. But it didn't really look like Godzilla. It came out in the 70s. It was about, like, I think 18 or 24 inches tall. And he's a weird looking Godzilla. But anyway, they just kind of shoehorned him into this line called Shogun Warriors. So they had Shogun Godzilla there outside of the box. Again, I asked him how much do you want for that, and he's like, oh, I just got that in. I haven't even priced it yet, but at least $400. And again, I was like, ugh. And I don't think he's necessarily overpriced. Like, these prices were, it's reasonable, but it seems like I was kind of hoping maybe he would, they'd be cheaper, But anyway, so he had lots of cool stuff in there. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time because Vanessa just kind of parked on the curb and was waiting for me in there. So I kind of just did a quick little walkthrough. But it's the kind of place maybe we should go check it out together sometime. But whenever I go into a shop like that, I always feel compelled to buy something. So the one thing I bought here is, because I'm really into reaction figures and stuff lately, so I bought this Cthulhu figure. So this was a set of figures that was a Kickstarter a couple of years ago. And I remember being kind of intrigued by it. And they even did show up at local comic shops. Strange Adventures had these. But I think this particular figure went pretty quick. And then some of the other figures in the line stuck around a little bit longer, but they're not nearly as exciting. Anyway, so a couple of years have gone by and I haven't seen them since. And once or twice I have kind of thought to myself, especially as my reaction figure collection has ramped up, I'm like, you know what, I should have bought that Cthulhu figure. Anyway, so we had it there, and it was $35, which isn't too far off from what it would have been retail a couple of years ago. Like, I'm paying $25 for most reaction figures here in Canada. So the fact that he was from a niche little shop, $10 more, not the end of the world. And this isn't a figure that I can get readily available anywhere else. So, anyway, you know much about Cthulhu?
I don't, so I didn't really follow that when I was younger or as an adult. I know it's H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, and I don't know much about him either. Like, I don't want to be a poser here and pretend I'm some big H.P. Lovecraft fan, because I'm not. I've read just a little bit of his, like, short stories. So I don't know much about the mythology of, I think, the Elder Gods or whatever they were called. And I didn't actually even realize until I got home with this thing that this isn't even Cthulhu. Like, I know Cthulhu is supposed to be a big thing, but I thought maybe shrunk down for this. But this figure is called the Spawn of Cthulhu. So he's one of his little minions, I guess. On the back there you see there's a couple other figures. Was the Deep One, the Cultist, the Spawn of Cthulhu, and the Professor. So, anyway, he's cool. I like him. Again, I'll probably open him up and do like a little close-up review of him. He comes with the Necronomicon, Book of the Dead down there. But yeah, what do you think?
That's pretty cool. Definitely unique. It would fit in nicely with your reaction figures, and I don't know. I don't really have much to say about this one because I haven't followed it or know anything about it really, but looks pretty cool. He's different.
Yeah, and I feel like if I choose to, in my mind, he's going to be Cthulhu as opposed to the Spawn of Cthulhu. And I've got a bunch of reaction figures of, like, Godzilla and Ultraman and all those guys on the. So I feel like he can display with them, and that way he'll seem more to scale with these other big creatures. And even though it's a decent card, I will probably open this up because
it's damaged.
Well, it is damaged, which doesn't bother me too much, but also, like, it's got that really nice artwork on the back, but on the front, I imagine that's probably the same artwork that came on all 4 figures. Like, I prefer it if it was a close-up of, like, this character. Like, it's a little generic. But, yeah. So that's what I picked up, and we should definitely check out Lost World sometime.
For sure.
And we're also, you sent me a link to, there's a toy show coming up in August.
Yes, I forgot what that was about now. It's like a toy con.
Yeah, and it's actually like, so I mentioned we're in a suburb of Halifax. It's actually in our suburb. Like, it's just down the road. Mm-hmm. And again, this is something else I've talked about recently where I've said, how come we can't have a little toy store of our own? Apparently we have one. And I'd say, I'm on all these Facebook groups. Like, I'm on G.I. Joe Facebook group, Super 7 Facebook groups. And these guys in Ontario and in the United States, they're always talking about, like, oh, toy show this weekend, going to the toy show. Here's my toy show haul. And I'm thinking, like, how come we can't have toy shows here? Like, I know there's nerds around. Yeah. Like, why aren't there any toy shows? And then literally you sent me this link to a toy show that's coming up. I don't know how big it'll be.
I think it's at the Legion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know how many people are going to be there. There's like a trade. There's displays. I'm sure there will be merchants there trying to sell stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unique in our community for sure. We don't have anything like that, and I think this is at least the first time in 25 years that I've lived here I know that they've had something like this. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So here's a closer look at the Spawn of Cthulhu. So you can see he's got some really nice sculpted detail in there. And, the paint is pretty basic, but he's got a nice kind of light green wash, which helps bring out the details of the darker green sculpt. Now, I did notice, even though the paint job looks pretty good on his eyes and everywhere else, you notice his fingernails and his toenails are painted gray, except for one, they forgot to do one of his feet. So that's pretty annoying. They got the little one on the back, but not the front. Anyway, he does move like a reaction figure. Arms forward, backwards, head turns. He does have the book as an accessory, but also his wings. So if you want to display him without his wings and tail, you can do that. This is a softer rubber. So this is nice and kind of pliable, where he's, much harder. He feels like a standard kind of Kenner reaction figure. So yeah, he looks pretty cool. And as I mentioned before, the actual Cthulhu is supposed to be a very large creature. So if I bring in my little diorama here, that's got my Red King and my Godzilla. So these are some big kaiju. You can stand Cthulhu in there with him, and he fits in pretty cool. Okay, so One other thing I want to talk about before we go is the new Haslab project. So,
yeah,
if you guys aren't familiar with Haslab, it's basically Hasbro's own version of Kickstarter. So, where they have a big project that they don't think will sell at retail. So, they basically set a funding goal the same way Kickstarter does. Like, so we have to reach this minimum goal. If we don't reach it, we're not even going to bother producing this thing. But if we reach this goal, then we'll produce it made to order. We'll send it out to the people that backed it, and that'll be it. It'll never show up at retail stores or anything. So I think the first one they did was Jabba the Hutt sail barge.
Yes.
So this
right.
This was a big ship. Like, if you're familiar with Return of the Jedi, and of course you are, you're watching a toy channel. But anyway, the sail barge is a huge ship. And I don't know how big the toy was. I would probably say like 4 feet long or something. It was pretty elaborate. It had the sails on the top. You could open it up. There was all these little bits and pieces in there. But it was several $100s. And I did not back it because I am not currently collecting the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures, that's the scale it was for. I have a bunch of them, but they're not currently on display. They're all in storage. So that ship didn't really make any sense to me. Plus, I'm not really a vehicle guy. I prefer just the figures. And I love Jabba the Hutt, but I already have a Jabba the Hutt. So, I didn't really need a sail barge. Another one they did was the Mandalorians Razor Crest, which is the ship he has. And they almost seemed like they were trolling fans. And that as soon as it funded and everybody, they got however many people, 10,000 people to pay for this thing up in advance, is the next week they blew the ship up on the show and everybody was super pissed.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's still a cool vehicle. It's a cool toy. So again, I wasn't interested in that because again, it was scaled for the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars. They've done a couple of other things. They did a Ghostbusters proton pack. They've done, I think, some lightsabers. They've had some that didn't work. They tried to do a big, a life-size Cookie Monster that didn't fund. Another one I was kind of disappointed, but I was also kind of relieved about. The first one that I was really considering getting in on was a Rancor, which is, the big beast that lives underneath Jabba the Hutt's throne room. And I have a really nice Rancor figure in the 3 3/4 inch scale, so he's about this big. But this one was to scale with the 6-inch figure, so he would have been this big. And again, he was several $100s. And I was like, I want that because I love the Rancor, but do I really need it? Because I already have a really cool one this big. Do I need one this big? Anyway, it didn't fund. They didn't meet the minimum goal, so it's not happening. So I don't have to have that regret of, I didn't buy it. They've also done, Galactus and the Sentinel, both of which were cool. But I don't know if you can see. I've got both the Galactus and the Sentinel behind your head there, I think. I've got a Galactus and a Sentinel figure standing up there with my Marvel Legends collection. But those are technically from the 3 3/4 inch line. So, there's a scale with the smaller figures. So they're kind of small compared to my 6-inch Marvel Legends, but they still tower over them because those figures are about, I think, 12, 14, 16 inches tall. But anyway, they did some Haslabs for those same characters, but they would have been much taller. I don't know how many inches off the top of my head, but they would have been much bigger than the ones I have. But again, with several $100s, I have to ask myself, okay, do I really need that much bigger of a Galactus? I already have a big Galactus. But one of the selling points for those is the add-ons.
Yeah.
So with Galactus, I didn't really feel I needed the Galactus, but then they started adding characters. So if they reach this goal and then they hit this funding goal, then they add somebody new. And so there was a couple Silver Surfer characters that they added, which I don't know if they'll ever release them individually. So there was Nova and Morg, which are 2 characters I really like from the Silver Surfer universe. And it was almost tempting to get Galactus just so I could get them, but I didn't. But anyway, that brings us to their newest Haslab. And I saw this. They were doing a live stream, and I texted you. I was like, You want to check this out?
Yep.
And it was kind of not the best kept secret. It kind of leaked the day before what they were going to reveal. But it was a Cobra Hiss Tank in the 6-inch scale for their G.I. Joe Classified line. So I'm pretty much all in on the G.I. Joe Classified line. I collect all of the figures. Because they're 6 inches, they don't really have vehicles. There's been a couple of 2-packs where the character comes with a motorcycle, because that's about the size of the vehicle that they can probably convince retailers to carry. because a Jeep or a tank or something is just too big for the 6-inch figures. So, normally a tank I wouldn't get that excited about, but the Cobra Hiss Tank, to me, it's almost like a character from G.I. Joe. I love the Cobra Hiss Tank. Me and my older brother, we collected everything together when we were kids, so he had half of the G.I. Joe figures and half the vehicles, and I had the other half. The Hiss Tank was mine, and it was one of my very first vehicles. It came very early on in the G.I. Joe, the vintage toy line. This is my vintage one here. I still have it out on display. None of my other vintage G.I. Joe stuff is out on display, but this still is because I'll have to cut in a little. But you can see I've got all these Hiss Tanks. They've got a blue one, an orange one, a white one. There's like red one. I've got that whole bottom row is Hiss Tanks. They even extend over to this side. I've got my purple one there, a red one. That's the secondary version of the Hiss Tank. But like, I probably have, I don't know, more than 10. I've got a 10 or 11 Hiss Tanks already. But these are all scaled for the 3 3/4 inch line. But it's such like a unique looking vehicle. It's kind of like futuristic. It's not really based on real world anything. Arguably, it's a little silly that a tank would have a little glass canopy on the front because you'd think the guy would be a sitting duck in there. But that's all part of the fun. And, yeah, love it.
I remember just after you sent me the link, watching it, and I'm not well versed in G.I. Joe stuff because I was late to the party with those.
Yeah.
But I remember them showing, like, the Hiss Tank and immediately texting you, like, you're definitely going to fucking buy this, aren't you? And you're like, oh yes, I'm all in. The price tag on it was a little hefty.
It is.
And that's in American currency.
It's $300 US. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's like 1.3. So, like, we're closer to $500 to get it in Canadian dollars. Plus, the shipping, I think they offer free domestic shipping. Mm-hmm. But for me, it's probably going to cost me another $100 in shipping to get this giant box up to Canada. So, you know, this thing is going to be like over $500 for me. It's like a pretty serious investment. And if it was just the tank, as much as I love the tank, I wouldn't get it. Now, it does some really cool stuff. Like this here, you'll notice that it's got little wheels on the bottom here like this. These treads don't work. On the new tank, like the treads work. So when you wheel it, you see the treads like moving around. It's got a ton of light up action, so it launches like a Cobra symbol, like projects it kind of like Spider-Man does from his belt. The cockpit's all lit up with red. This here, there's no storage for figures in the back of the tank, but the new one, it opens up and you can sit other figures inside. That was
definitely a nice addition.
And it's all lit up red inside the back, so it looks like the back of a submarine or something. So that's all very cool. The tank is really cool, but again, I wouldn't have paid $300, $500 for it. But the Hiss driver. So this is the pilot of the Hiss Tank. So this is the old retro Hiss driver. I loved this guy, and he is included with the set. So you'll get a new 6-inch version, and we haven't got this guy in this scale before. This guy's about to fall apart. My old vintage Joes they're so dangly and
it's the O-rings.
Yeah. I think it's actually already broken on him. He's just barely hanging together. But anyway, so to get a new version of this guy is pretty exciting. I'm going to let him rest in the tank for now while I talk. Actually, I'll just lay him here. But one thing they said, so the goal was for this thing to get funded, they needed 8,000 people. And they had the campaign open for 45 days. So as long as 8,000 people sign up to commit to buy this thing in 45 days, they're going to make it. But then they have some stretch goals. So they said, once we surpass that 8,000, if you get to this point and this point and this point, we'll add on some things to it. And right off the bat, they said, if we hit 8,000 within the first week, we are going to give you a bonus figure. So you would get a second Hiss driver. And they renamed him the Hiss Tactician or something. Yeah. But they said the original guy that designed the Hiss driver back in the 80s, which is Ron Rudat. Joe fans know who this guy is. So Ron Rudat, when he first designed the Hiss driver, he had the design and then he colored it a bunch of different ways, and I guess either chose one or submitted it to Hasbro, and they picked that one. So what Hasbro's doing is, like, for the secondary figure, we're going to show you all of Ron Rudat's original other color designs, and you guys can vote for which one you want. And so there's a lot of them. There's a couple that are like mostly black. There's one that's kind of purple, one that's kind of blue, another one that's red, but red and black and stuff. So I think that's super cool. So right off the bat, 2 Hiss drivers with the tank, because the thing funded in less than a day.
Yeah.
So even while this live stream was going on, people were commenting like, "Oh shit, this is already at 500 backers." Like people were going and leaving the live stream to go back it. And yeah, by the end of the day, it got to the 8,000. So that secondary driver is a lock for anybody.
Which is incredible.
And the figures, like I said, nowadays retail for about $35 here in Canada. So if that's about $70 of value out of the, let's say, $500 I'm going to pay. So like that definitely helps ease the pain a little bit. And then it quickly passed the $10,000. And so then Hasbro added the first kind of surprise tier, which was a couple of add-on missile launchers to each side of the tank. Cool, but not a big deal to me. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, I guess. And then the next phase was they added... So actually, on the original Hiss Tank, they changed this glass canopy because they acknowledged that it didn't make any sense. So they gave it more of like an armored thing, and it had some cool like suicide doors so they open up on the side, and the driver can get right in without having to open the whole canopy up like that. So it was a cool new design, a cool upgrade, but there were some comments, people being like, I want it to look like my vintage Hiss Tank. So for that second tier, which got unlocked at 12,000, they added a glass canopy as an option, so you can display it with whichever one you want. Plus, they gave it some armor plates here, which replicates this piece because it wasn't showing on the original. So if you wanted to make it look more vintage, you could put this armor plate, and that would, again, make it look more like this toy. And again, those were cool, I guess, but nothing to get me too excited. But just, I don't know if you saw the new tier that they just announced earlier today. I did not. So yeah, just earlier today they announced that if we hit, I guess it's 14,000, which is the next tier goal, they're going to give us another action figure. So it's a third Hiss driver, except it's going to be a female Hiss driver in this same deco. So we're going to have 2 figures in this red and blue with the black boots, except one's male, one's female.
Okay. And
we'll get the tactician in a color to be determined later. So now we got 3 Hiss drivers, which is one of my favorite G.I. Joe toys. It's like, there's no way I'm not backing this. Like, I haven't backed it yet, but I'm absolutely going to. And besides the third driver, they actually gave you an additional little gun turret that adds on the bottom of the front here, and there's a couple other little guns that plug in. And so there's still a 4th tier to be announced. And who knows, maybe if they achieve that, maybe they'll start adding some more stuff. A lot of people are speculating online that because they specifically sculpted this, the vintage toy has a little tow cable on the back here. I don't know if you can see it there, that little hook. And so it could tow other vehicles. And the fact that they added it on to this one, and I don't necessarily think the same. I think, well, they just added it because it was there. But a lot of people are speculating that the next tier is going to be something it can like tow. So that's almost like a secondary little vehicle. So I don't know. That might be asking a little bit too much, but that would be pretty cool as well. But really, anything else at this point is gravy. 3 figures.
Yeah, so that's well over $100 worth of figures that you're getting for like the 500, right?
Yep. And like if you wanted to, now I'm not brave enough to attempt this, or nor do I have the money, but like what a lot of people do with these things is there's always people that miss out.
Yeah.
Either they heard about it too late or they regret not getting it. If I were to say buy 2 Hiss tanks, I could probably sell the second tank without the figures and recoup the money from one tank, or I could sell each of the 3 figures from the second tank for $100 each and recoup $300 back. And like, there's ways to go about it, but I'm just buying the one. I'm just leaving it at that. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. It's going to be ages before it's actually in hand, but I think that's super cool. This is the kind of project that I'd like to see them do more of, and the fact that they gave us 3 figures, like it really feels like a worthwhile add-on, because like with that Rancor, that's why I think it failed so poorly, is people were like, okay, the Rancor is cool, but what else are you going to give us? And then the first tier was like some bones to like sprinkle around his feet, like, oh look, bones. And then it was like the next one was like a cardboard backdrop that looked like the the cave that he lives in. If you're giving me like how much did that cost to Hasbro? A couple of cents.
Cut it off the pizza box.
But you apparently needed another like whatever it was, $5,000 to give us this little background. People were pissed that they wanted to get the Rancor Keeper, because the Rancor Keeper is very closely associated with the Rancor, and we don't have him in the 6-inch scale, and he's the kind of figure that people probably wouldn't buy on their own.
Right.
So to lump him with the Rancor seemed like a no-brainer. Also, Ula, the dancing slave girl who gets fed to the Rancor. She would be another ideal figure because, again, maybe you can't sell her on her own at 6-inch. Would collectors buy her? But include her with the Rancor. There's real value there. But they dropped the ball on the stretch goals, and that's why the Rancor didn't fund. This here, great stretch goals, great value right from the start with those two figures.
That's shocking that they reached that within one day.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. People are the Joe fan base is passionate, and I think they're really digging the classified line. There's a vocal, anytime you look at one of these posts about the Hiss Tank, there's always somebody, you're entitled to your opinion, but I don't know why you have to be so negative on there. People are like, these tiers suck. I don't want this. Nobody wants a female pilot. This is people that have to complain about.
I do.
Yeah, people that have to complain about everything. But yeah, I'm really excited about the Hiss Tank. So. Yay.
Yeah, it looked pretty cool. I was impressed, and again, where I'm not that well versed in Joe, I like that they're doing a Haslab thing. I think it allows a lot of creativity and adaptability to the current classified line and just the G.I. Joe venue in general. Definitely not something I would buy, but
you never
I'm
know.
glad you're happy about it. And
there's still 42 days left in the campaign. I might be able to convince you before it's through.
Mom, turn this off.
You said she only watches for about the first 10 or 15 minutes, so we're safe. Your mom won't know. Alright. Hopefully she didn't stick around for the girthy.
That'd be a little awkward, but I mean.
Okay, so I think that's probably it for today. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button. Anything you want to add?
Not today.
I apologize that I feel like talk 75% through all these.
It is your channel, but I'm also a shy dude, so
you'll get there. But anyway.
I will get there. I can talk, but
I know. I apologize for monopolizing it, but
that's okay.
A lot of shit to talk about.
Yeah, I only brought two things. So.
Okay, so we'll see you soon with another episode. So until then, ciao.
Hasta la vista,
baby.